Okay, I want to be honest about something, and it is a little embarrassing.
Go for it.
So, last week, I found myself looking at someone's social media. A lot. Like, more than I should have. And the embarrassing part is, I do not even like this person. We had a falling out a while ago, and I genuinely do not respect how they behave. And yet, there I was, looking at their photos, reading their posts, and feeling worse about myself with every scroll.
Feeling worse about yourself because of someone you do not even like?
Because of someone I do not even like. And I kept going back. I did not want to stop somehow. Even though every time I looked, I felt a little more deflated.
And I think this is something a lot of people have experienced, even if they do not talk about it. The question is, why? Why do we compare ourselves to people we do not admire, do not want to be like, maybe even actively dislike?
It makes no logical sense. If I do not respect their choices or their values, why am I using their life as a measuring stick for mine?
Today we are going to try to answer that. Because I think when you understand what is actually happening when you compare, the behavior makes more sense, even if it does not immediately stop.
And maybe you can catch yourself doing it a little sooner.
So let us start with the basic question. What is comparison really? What is it that you are actually doing when you look at someone else's life and measure it against your own?
My first instinct would be to say, I am seeing how I am doing. Like, I am checking my progress.
That sounds reasonable. But I do not think that is quite what is happening. Because if you were just checking progress, you would compare yourself to people you respect, people you want to learn from, people whose opinions of themselves you care about.
Right. You would compare yourself to your role models.
But the comparisons that sting most, the ones that are hardest to look away from, are often not with your role models. They are with people who are doing something you are afraid of falling behind in, something specific, something that already worries you.
Oh, so the person I was comparing myself to, I was not comparing because I admire them. I was comparing because they triggered something I was already anxious about.
Yes, and what they have, or what they appear to have, felt like evidence about something you were already worried about in yourself.
That is a little uncomfortable to look at directly.
It is. But it is much more accurate than the idea that comparison is just about wanting what someone else has.
So, comparison is not about admiration. It is about anxiety.
It is mostly about anxiety. You compare yourself to people who seem to confirm your fears, who seem to show you, this is possible, people are doing this, and you are not.
And you do not compare yourself to people who do not touch your insecurities?
Right. There are probably a lot of people out there doing things you will never be bothered by. Someone who is a great chess player, or a great chef, or has a very organized closet. If those things are not connected to your fears, you feel nothing when you see them.
I literally do not care if someone has a more organized closet than me. It does not register.
Because it is not connected to anything you are afraid of. But show you someone who seems to be further ahead in something you care deeply about, or something you are secretly afraid you are failing at, and the comparison grabs you immediately.
And holds on.
And holds on. Let us talk about insecurity for a moment. Insecurity, insecurity, means feeling uncertain or worried about a part of yourself. A specific area where you do not feel safe or confident. Not a character flaw, just an area that feels fragile.
Everyone has them. Different ones for different people. But everyone has areas where they feel less sure of themselves.
And the people who show up in your comparison spiral are almost always people who are doing something in exactly that fragile area. Not a random area. Your area.
So the person you compare yourself to most is actually telling you something about yourself.
Exactly. The person you compare yourself to tells you more about your own fears than about their life.
I want to sit with that for a second. Because in my case, the person I was looking at is doing well publicly in a way that I sometimes wonder about for myself. Not in a way I admit out loud, but quietly, it is something I think about.
And so looking at them felt like evidence. Like your fear saying, see, other people are doing it. Are you?
Yes. Which is why it felt so hard to stop looking. It was not enjoyment. It was more like I could not stop checking the evidence.
Right. Comparison often feels like research, like you are gathering useful information. But most of the time, you are not actually gathering information that helps you do anything. You are just feeding the anxiety.
You are giving your fear more material to work with.
More material, but no resolution. Because looking at someone else's life, especially on social media, where you are seeing a very edited version, cannot actually answer the question your fear is asking.
The question being something like, am I enough? Am I doing enough? Is it too late for me?
And seeing that someone else seems to be doing well does not answer that question. It just makes you feel like the answer might be no.
Without giving you any information about what to do with that.
Right. It is like checking the weather obsessively when you cannot go outside. Knowing it is sunny does not help you when you are stuck inside. It just makes you more aware of the gap.
Okay, so why can we not stop? If we know it does not help, if we know it makes us feel worse, why is it so hard to just close the app?
A few reasons. The first is that it genuinely feels like information. Your brain is telling you, this is useful, you should know this, this is relevant to your life. And that feeling of relevance is very compelling, even when the information is not actually useful.
It feels like due diligence.
Like you would be making a mistake not to know. The second reason is that stopping feels like admitting something. Like, if I stop looking, does that mean I have given up? Does it mean I am not taking my situation seriously?
Which is backwards. Stopping would actually be the more useful choice.
Completely backwards. But anxiety does not always think in straight lines.
And the third reason?
The third reason is that sometimes the comparison does produce something useful. Briefly. You see someone ahead of you and for a moment, you feel motivated. I am going to work harder. I am going to do better. And that motivation can feel good. So you learn that the comparison sometimes creates a temporary good feeling.
Even though the good feeling goes away quickly and leaves you feeling worse.
It does. But your brain remembers the brief good part and keeps going back.
It is like eating something that tastes good for a moment and then makes you feel terrible. You keep doing it because of the first part.
Exactly. Okay. So, what do you do with this?
Because just knowing it is not going to make you stop.
No. Let us talk about a few things that actually help. The first is to use the comparison as a map, not a measuring stick.
Say more about that.
A measuring stick tells you how you are doing relative to someone else, which is not very useful information. A map tells you where you want to go, and the person you keep comparing yourself to is pointing at something, a direction you actually care about, even if you have not admitted it out loud.
So instead of, they have that and I do not, I should ask, what is this comparison actually pointing me toward?
Right. What is the specific thing that feels painful to see in their life? Name it as precisely as you can. Not, they are successful. That is too vague. What specifically? What would have to be true in your own life for this comparison to stop hurting?
Because that is the thing you actually want. or the thing you are actually afraid of not having.
And naming it clearly is the first step to doing something real about it. As long as it stays vague, as long as it is just, "I feel bad when I see their life," you cannot act on it. Once it is specific, you can.
I tried this. After I noticed what I was doing, all that scrolling, I actually asked myself, what specifically feels painful here? And I found an answer. A real one. And it was a little embarrassing, but it was also useful, because now I knew what it was actually about.
And once you know what it is actually about, you can choose what to do with it. You can take action toward the thing you want. Or you can look at whether the fear is realistic. Or you can decide, actually, do I even want this? Was this ever really mine?
Sometimes you compare yourself to someone, and when you get specific about what the comparison is actually pointing at, you realize, that is not even something I want. I was just afraid of falling behind in a race I never actually signed up for.
That happens more often than you think, especially with comparisons to people from your past, people you went to school with, worked with, grew up near. You can find yourself feeling like you are losing a competition that was never yours to begin with.
Someone else started the timer on a race you did not agree to run.
And comparison keeps pulling you back to that race.
The second practical thing, and this might sound simple, is to notice what you are actually looking for when you open the app. Before you scroll, ask yourself, what am I hoping to feel right now? What do I need? And is this app going to give me that?
Because most of the time, when you open social media in that specific way, not casually, but looking for something, you are looking for connection or reassurance or something to make you feel less alone. And looking at the life of someone who makes you feel bad about yourself is not going to provide any of those things.
But the other option, calling someone, going outside, doing the actual thing you are afraid you are failing at, those might.
Those might. And they are available. They just feel harder in the moment than opening an app.
Okay, and one last thing. If you are consistently comparing yourself to someone who is not a good person or someone you genuinely do not respect, and it keeps making you feel bad, that is a signal that the fear underneath is strong enough to override your actual values.
Right. Normally, you would not care about the opinion or the life of someone you do not respect. When you do, when their apparent success feels like a threat to you, it means the specific thing they seem to have has real weight for you. And that weight is worth examining.
Not avoiding, examining.
Because once you know what it is, you can decide how much of your energy it actually deserves.
You are not comparing yourself to them because you want their life. You are comparing because some part of you is afraid that you are already behind, and their life is looking like evidence.
And the answer is never in their feed.
It is in yours. In what you actually do next.
Okay, to bring it together, comparison is not about admiration. It is about anxiety. The people we compare ourselves to most are almost always the ones touching our most specific fears, not the ones we most admire. The comparison feels like research, but is usually just feeding the anxiety without giving you anything useful. The way through is to use the comparison as a map, to name exactly what it is pointing at, and then decide what you actually want to do with that.
The person you keep comparing yourself to is telling you more about your own fears than about their life.
And your fears are worth listening to. Just not on their terms.
Close the app. Then open the thing you are actually afraid of.
Thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves.
See you next time!